Imagine that you and your friend are gossiping about your colleagues. You mentioned that one of your colleagues is about to get promoted, but they've sworn you to secrecy, so you can't say who it is yet. And then your friend is like, "That's funny. I heard the same thing from a colleague and they also swore me to secrecy." So of course you start to wonder, could we be talking about the same person? You'd love to confirm that and gossip about it. But if you're not talking about the same person, you definitely don't want to reveal the identities of these colleagues. So can you figure out whether you're part of the same conspiracy without revealing your colleagues' identities if you aren't? Sounds impossible? Well, here's a rule of thumb.
Almost all of the most beautiful things that we do in cryptography seem like they are clearly impossible.
We collaborated on this video with famous cryptography researcher Amit Sahai. Together we'll cover the double-padlock protocol, its simplification called Diffie-Hellman, we'll solve internet security, and in the end, our riddle. The story of this video started when Amit contacted us and suggested we talk about what's probably the most important riddle in cryptography. Let's hear Amit's explanation.
So you and I have, let's say, never met. Let's say we're geographically far apart and we've never met, so we don't have an opportunity to set up any secret keys or anything like that. And yet we want to exchange a secret message with each other, but we don't trust the postman, right? We don't trust the evil postman. We don't know what he's up to, right? So how can we do it? How can we possibly communicate even if we're geographically limited and we haven't seen each other before?
So how can we do it? Let's say that both Vašek and I have a safe box and a padlock to lock it with. So for example, I could put my secret message in a box, lock it, and send it to Vašek. Since it's locked, it's safe from the evil postman. But here's the problem. Vašek can't open it either because he doesn't have the right key. So the question is, can we still communicate? It sounds impossible, right? But there's this beautiful trick. I write down my secret message, put it inside the box, secure it with my padlock, and send it over to Vašek. That seems kind of pointless, right? Because he can't open it. But what he can do is to add his lock to the box and send it back to me. Now, the box is still secured, nobody can open it. But when I receive the doubly locked box, I can remove my lock and resend the box. Vašek removes his lock, and voila, he can read the message now. And since there's always at least one lock on the box while it's traveling, this is secure. If you imagine an evil postman trying to snoop on our conversation, he'll never be able to open the box and read the secret. This trick is called the double-padlock protocol, and it's one of the most important ideas in cryptography. But here's a question. How do we implement it if we want to communicate over the internet rather than through post? Let's translate the elements of the riddle one by one. First, the message is no longer a piece of paper with some text on it, but it's rather encoded as a sequence of bits. In fact, we'll think of this sequence as one huge number, which will make our life easier down the line. And similar to many other ciphers, we'll use modular arithmetic. Remember, modular arithmetic is the math of clocks. You fix some modulus, let's say 12, and then you only have to consider the remainder after dividing with that modulus. For example, 15 modulo 12 equals 3. Regular clocks are divided into 12 parts, but for this cipher, we'll need one with a lot more ticks. In practice, the modulus would be a huge number with close to 1,000 digits. In our animations, we'll use 100 as the modulus for simplicity. Now, let's say that my secret message is the number 42. To encrypt it, I generate a random number, say 55, which will act as my key. I add the key to the message, which corresponds to turning the clock hand by an angle. The evil postman only sees the sum, meaning the rotated hand. And since we chose a key randomly, the sum is now also completely random, so he has no way to extract the original message. So adding the random number acts as a lock. So I send my message to Vašek, encrypted in that way. The next step of the double-padlock protocol is for him to add his secret key. So he does that by rotating the hand one more time by a random angle. Then he sends the message back. Next, I remove my lock by subtracting my key and send it back to Vašek. He subtracts his key and sees the secret number. And that's it. We implemented the double-padlock protocol. You can see that he successfully recovered my original message. Mathematically, the important property that we used here is commutativity. We first added the first key, then the second key, and then we subtracted them. But the order in which we did that doesn't matter. Even if we were to change the order of these operations, we'd still end up with the original message. It's the same thing as having two padlocks on one box. It doesn't matter which one you add or remove first. On the other hand, if the encryption function were not commutative, it would correspond to me sending Vašek a box that he would then lock inside of an even larger box. And obviously that doesn't work, since then I can't remove my lock. So are we done? Unfortunately, no. Our protocol is actually completely broken. Can you see why? Well, the problem is that the secret postman can recover the secret message. To see why, let's run the protocol again. If the postman listens, he sees m plus a, where a is my key, then m plus a plus b, and finally m plus b. But look, knowing the value of these three expressions leads to three equations with three unknowns. So the postman can just solve them and break our cipher. Concretely, he can add the first and the last number he saw and subtract the middle one, and that gives him m. 97 plus 93 minus 48 is 42. This trick of adding a random key is called a one-time pad, and it gives you pretty much the strongest encryption you can have, provided that, as the name suggests, you only use it once. In our setup, the postman saw 3 messages, but only 2 keys, which allowed him to crack the cipher. Okay, this looks bad, but not hopeless, so let's try to fix it. Let's go back to modular arithmetic. We can easily perform all kinds of operations modulo some number, not just adding and subtracting. If the modulus is prime, we can quickly multiply and divide numbers, raise one number to the power of another, or take roots. There is one major exception. As far as we know, there is no simple way to compute the logarithm. At least if the modulus is prime, which our chosen modulus of 100 is not, but let's stick to it for illustration purposes. Basically, imagine that I take some number like 42 and keep looking at its powers. As far as the best mathematicians can tell, there's not much structure in where the powers land on our modular arithmetic clock. The picture is kind of random. So if I tell you that 42 to the power of something equals so-and-so, it's hard to find what that something is. In other words, in modular arithmetic with a very large modulus, we don't know how to implement logarithms efficiently. Here's what Amit has to say about the discrete logarithm problem.
Turns out to be hard, or at least we believe that it is hard, to be clear, okay? It would be an amazing, beautiful mathematical result if anyone discovered an efficient way to take logarithms modulo very large prime numbers. We don't know that it's impossible, just to be clear. Again, no one has proven that. If you could somehow prove that there is no efficient algorithm for solving the discrete logarithm problem, then you would earn $1 million. And that would be the hardest way that I know of earning $1 million.
And that's great news for us, because it means that raising a number to a power acts as a padlock. It's easy to add, but difficult to remove. So let's use that to make the protocol secure. So let's say I have the secret message, which is some number m. I encrypt it by raising it to my secret key a and send it to Vašek. He then has to add his own padlock, which means raising it one more time to his secret key b. Then he sends it back, and I remove my lock by computing the a root of the received message. And I send it back to him. He takes the b root, and we're done. As before, the evil postman can see our intermediate messages, but this time he can't use them to decrypt the message. If he could compute logarithms, he would take the log of each number, and after some multiplication and division, he would arrive at the log of the message m. But we know that taking logarithms is exactly what he can't do. And it turns out that breaking our cipher is basically as hard as computing discrete logarithms. So our cipher is probably secure. Even though mathematically it is possible to recover the secret message from what the postman sees, from a computational perspective, it's extremely difficult. Okay, the double-padlock protocol is great, but there's actually a similar and even simpler algorithm called Diffie-Hellman after its inventors. To understand how the two are related, let's go back to our evil postman riddle. Imagine that Vašek and I want to send many more secret messages. We could do this by just repeating the double-padlock protocol for each message individually, but that's kind of tedious because we need 3 rounds for each message. So what we could do instead is just run the protocol once to exchange a secret key. And once we have a shared secret key, everything becomes trivial. We can just use the key to lock and unlock the messages and send as many as we like. This also works in the software world, where we would just use a symmetric cipher like AES. And we can simplify a bit further, because the only thing that we actually need is for both of us to know the same secret number. And what the number is doesn't really matter. Anything can be used as a key for symmetric encryption. So once you realize that, you can ask, do we really need 3 rounds of communication for that? And that's where Diffie-Hellman comes in. In this protocol, Vašek and I publicly agree in advance on some number, let's say 37. This is different than agreeing on an encryption key in advance because this is just a constant that's part of the definition of the protocol and anyone can know it, including the evil postman. And then I simply raise this number to the power of my key and send it to Vašek. In the meantime, he does the same. He raises 37 to the power of his key and sends it to me. We both do this again with the message that we received, and that's it. We now know the same number, 37, raised to the product of our keys, A and B. The fact that exponentiation is commutative ensures, again, that our results match. And even if the evil postman knows both 37 to the power of A and 37 to the power of B, he still can't recover our secret key because, again, that would require computing discrete logarithms, and we know that's hard. Now our shared secret number is just some random-ish number without any special meaning. So in this sense, Diffie-Hellman isn't as powerful as the double-padlock protocol because we can't use it to exchange arbitrary messages. But for the purposes of establishing a shared secret key, that's more than enough. Now it seems like we've thought of everything, but there's actually still one big security hole in our protocol, the so-called man-in-the-middle attacks.
Let's say you have like a phone line direct to Alyx, right? And it happens to run through my house, right? So I pick up the phone line, I cut it, and then I just attach it to me, right? But then I can just pretend to be Alyx. And in this way, I would be able to see all of your messages without anyone being the wiser, because once I have decrypted your message, I could encrypt it and send it to Alyx. And once Alyx sends me a message, I can decrypt it, read it, and then re-encrypt it and send it to you, right?
To combat this problem in practice, we use something called the electronic signature, an unfakeable signature that only one person can attach to a document. This is something that's typically implemented by another famous protocol, RSA. Here the S in RSA stands for Shamir, who, as far as we can tell, is also the inventor of the double-padlock protocol. And just like that, we pretty much rediscovered the internet security stack. Whenever you use the HTTPS protocol, you're using a pretty complex tech stack, but at the heart of it lie three separate encryption technologies. The first one is the Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol. But when we initiate it, we also use RSA to prove our identity to the other party. That way, we get a common secret, and we use it to encrypt our messages using a symmetric cipher like AES. That's just a cipher that scrambles an input message using a secret key. And then the same key can be used to unscramble the message back. So all of this is happening everywhere around the internet a bazillion times per second. Okay, so we can send encrypted messages through insecure channels, but the most important problem still remains unsolved, our initial gossip riddle. Vašek and I want to find out whether we're talking about the same colleague. But if we are not, we don't want to reveal any information about who it might be. And the solution to that is kind of an advanced version of the double-padlock protocol. First, we take 5 identical boxes, one for each colleague. Then I write the names of our colleagues on post-it notes and stick them onto the boxes. I put a special token into the box of the colleague that I have the gossip about. I lock all the boxes with my lock and I send them to Vašek. Vašek then discards all the boxes except the one he's interested in, the one labeled with the name of the colleague he knows about. He removes the post-it from the box so that I can't tell which one it is, attaches his lock and sends it back to me. From this point, it's similar to the double-padlock protocol. I remove my lock and send the box back. Vašek removes his lock and opens it. If it contains the special token, he knows that we're both talking about the same colleague, and if he wants to, he can tell me that that's the case. The other possibility is that Vašek opens the box and sees that it's empty. In this case, the only thing that he learned is that we're not talking about the same person, but nothing else. As for me, in either outcome, I don't get any information by running this protocol, unless Vašek decides to tell me what he saw. This protocol solves a problem called Oblivious transfer. Why this name? On one hand, it's a transfer of knowledge from me to Vašek because each of the boxes contain a secret fact and I transfer one of the facts to him. And the transfer is oblivious because I have no idea which fact I actually transferred. That's because Vašek chose the box that he wants to open in secret. Our explanation hides some tricky details that you would need to figure out to turn this into a working protocol. In fact, typical implementations use something called zero-knowledge proofs, a fascinating topic on their own that would actually warrant a separate video. And it's one that we've already made, so you can check that out. Oblivious transfers can be used to solve a bunch of practical problems. Let's say you want to check whether your password has been leaked, aka whether you've been pwned. There's a server storing a large list of leaked passwords, but they don't want to make this list public. You can just send them your password and they'll tell you whether it's on the list. But do you trust the server enough to send it your password? One way out of this is by using a variant of our Oblivious transfer protocol. Oblivious transfers can also come in handy when you register for an end-to-end encrypted chat app like Signal or WhatsApp. You already have a bunch of contacts on your phone, and there's a server somewhere that knows all the contacts of the people that are using Signal. Again, you can use Oblivious transfers to learn which of your contacts are on the app without leaking your full list of contacts. Now, in practice, both of these examples are often solved by other means than Oblivious transfers, so I think of Oblivious transfers similarly to the Double-padlock protocol. They're a very powerful tool, but for a concrete problem, we can often get away with a simpler but faster solution. In a very broad sense, cryptography is the science of how to do stuff without a trusted authority. The problems in cryptography often lead to riddles that might sound impossible, but we often do end up solving them. Vašek actually had a much longer chat with Amit Sahai about all kinds of topics in cryptography and more. You can check it out on our second channel. And yes, we actually now have a second channel for these kinds of videos, so go check it out. Big thank you to all of our patrons, and especially to Amit Sahai, who actually suggested the topic to us as well. Like and subscribe, etc. Bye bye.